contributing editor and author of the book Big Coal, The Dirty Secret Behind America's Energy Future. Jeff, thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
On this Reuters story, one of the things that strikes me as remarkable about this is that there are now people who are former workers for Massey, some family members of people who worked for Massey who are willing to put their names to their quotes and talk about the company being dangerous. Is this new?
It is new because for a long time, there's been a kind of code of silence around Massey Energy because they're such a big coal operator in the region in Appalachia there that if you badmouth Massey, if you even tell the truth about what's going on in the mines, then you don't have a job. But I think what's happening is we're having a building obvious anger about what has gone on here. Massey was, pled guilty to 10 criminal counts, charges in the Aracoma mine in 2006, where 2 miners were killed. There was a lot of anger about the behavior there. They were found to have falsified the mine logs in that mine. There's a lot of anger around Massey's mountaintop removal mining, which is flattening large areas of Appalachia. A lot of Clean Water Act violations there. So I think what's happening are people are finally standing up in West Virginia and saying this has to stop. We have to change the way we mine coal.
When we think about trying as a country to make sure that people have a right to work without it costing them their lives, and we think about trying to create the expectation that companies will follow the law and not try to either buy their way or bully their way around it. You look at what happened with the Aracoma mine fire. That was in West Virginia in 2006. And as you say, Massey didn't just pay multi-million-dollar fines there. They were found guilty in a criminal case on that.
Right.
And yet we are still seeing safety violations related to ventilation, related to some of the same things that killed those miners in West Virginia in 2006, still happening. If criminal penalties don't work, multi-million-dollar fines don't work, increased regulations don't work, what works?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, this is a political problem. This is about the fact that Don Blankenship basically is the biggest political power in West Virginia. Nobody wants to stand up to him. He goes after politicians who do anything that he doesn't like. He spent $3.5 million a few years ago in attack ads against a state Supreme Court justice who had made a decision in a case that he didn't like. And the word on the street in West Virginia is you don't mess with Don, and it's just a really simple kind of intimidation that goes on. And then in these mines, it's not as all above board as we would like to think. I mean, these inspections happen down in the dark, and I know from talking to some of these mine inspectors, I know federal mine inspectors, and there's a lot of corruption in this, and there's a lot of backslapping and turning it and looking the other way, especially in the case of Massey. I mean, the obvious question here is why wasn't this mine shut down?
When we look at the disasters that have been happening so frequently in China with Chinese coal mines, we don't look at that and think like, oh, those Chinese coal mine operators, they sure are shady, or those Chinese coal miners, they sure don't know what they're doing in terms of safety. We, from this comfortable distance, look at that problem and say, wow, China's got a problem.
Right.
China's got a problem that they're growing so fast they don't care about the lives of their people.
Right.
We look at that problem and decide that's a government problem. That's a problem about effective governance and government priorities. I feel that way about the mining industry in this country, too, and I'm not at a comfortable distance from it. What do you think is the best hope for things actually getting better?
Well, I mean, I think that, part of what we're seeing is the Bush administration spent 8 years kind of gutting the Mine Safety Administration, so that became a kind of ineffective agency. There's good signs the Obama administration has put in a tough administrator in the Mine Safety Administration. I mean, I think we're really talking about political reform, but not just on the mine safety level, but within West Virginia. And that's a really complicated problem because this is a state. I mean, Don Blankenship makes the argument that the economy of West Virginia is dependent upon continuing to mine and burn coal. And he sees the coal industry, mining coal, as a commodity game. It's just get this stuff out of the ground as cheaply and as quickly as possible. And that has to change. We have to think about coal in a different kind of way.
Well, we need to factor in the lives and safety of the people who are doing this work in terms of figuring out the cost of it.
Right.
Jeff Goodell is a Rolling Stone contributing editor, and he's the author of Big Coal, The Dirty Secrets Behind America's Energy Future. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
President Obama right now is on Air Force One heading for Prague. He left the White House this evening, almost a year to the day since his last visit to the Czech capital. Last April, standing in what had been enemy territory during the Cold War, Mr. Obama laid out his vision of a world minus nuclear weapons.
I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons. This goal will not be reached quickly, perhaps not in my lifetime. It will take patience and persistence. But now we, too, must ignore the voices who tell us that the world cannot change. We have to insist, yes, we can.
Yes, we can change, he says, and we sort of have in incremental but important ways on this issue. The call for a world free of nuclear weapons isn't a new one. It was a vision, of course, that was shared by President John F. Kennedy. It was also shared by that other notorious weak-willed liberal, Ronald Reagan.
We're not just discussing limits on a further increase of nuclear weapons. We seek instead to reduce their number. We seek the total elimination one day of nuclear weapons from the face of the earth.
What a lily-livered liberal that Ronald Reagan was. Today's right wing is attacking Barack Obama for embracing Ronald Reagan's policy on nuclear weapons, which tells you a lot more about today's right wing than it does about either Ronald Reagan or Barack Obama. But the actions that Mr. Obama is taking now on nukes shouldn't be a surprise. The last time he went to Prague a year ago, he told us what he was planning to do in this field. He said, for example, that the U.S. would cut back on the circumstances under which we would consider using nukes.
Put an end to Cold War thinking. We will reduce the role of nuclear weapons in our national security strategy and urge others to do the same.
Done. This week, the administration released its new nuclear strategy plan, which boils down to, if you don't have nuclear weapons, we won't use nuclear weapons against you, unless your name rhymes with Shmiran or Shma North Korea. You guys are exempt from any deal with anybody else because you're cheaters. Russia, too, made a similar announcement earlier this year. Mr. Obama also said he'd like to reduce the number of nuclear weapons that already exist in the world.
To reduce our warheads and stockpiles, we will negotiate a new strategic arms reduction treaty with the Russians this year.
Also done, albeit a little bit late, Obama will sign the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, the New START Treaty, with Russia tomorrow. It should cut the number of deployed nukes by almost a third. Back at that speech a year ago in Prague, President Obama also said we'd do this.
We should build a new framework for civil nuclear cooperation, including an international fuel bank, so that countries can access peaceful power without increasing the risk of proliferation.
Also in the works, international fuel banks on the agenda for next week's nuclear security summit in Washington. Mr. Obama hopes to secure an agreement on them then. The goal of a nuclear-free world has been around for half a century. Actually achieving it will probably take just as long. And anyone calling President Obama a commie or worse for trying to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons should probably be asked if they think Ronald Reagan was a commie too. In response to President Obama taking on this issue, that I still like to call the nuclear issue, even though I know that's not how you pronounce it, the nation of Iran is getting its nuclear panties in a twist. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad today gave an anti-American speech that included this pure gold bombastic dictator's strangeness. He said, quote, "Mr. Obama, you are a newcomer to politics. Wait until your sweat dries and get some experience. Be careful not to read just any paper put in front of you or repeat any statement recommended. American officials bigger than you, more bullying than you, couldn't do a damn thing, let alone you. Wait until your sweat dries? Don't make any nuclear policy until at least 20 minutes after you've completed your exercise routine, because you might cramp. Wait until your sweat dries?" To be fair, the tiny little Iranian president might be distracted on this issue. He is busy these days planning a nuclear summit of his own, which he says will compete with the one that Mr. Obama is convening in Washington next week. The American summit's going to focus on securing loose nukes around the world, preventing terrorists from getting their grubby little mitts on them. Leaders from more than 40 countries are expected to be in attendance. For its alternate summit, Iran has invited 60 countries. Take that, Yankee imperialists. So far, only 6 countries have RSVP'd. But don't worry, Iran. We are sure that more leaders will get back to you on RSVP soon, just as soon as their sweat dries.